following lesson is linked to Learning Outcome 1, Reading and Viewing. It addresses the assessment standard that requires learners to recognize sociocultural and political values, attitudes and beliefs, such as attitudes and beliefs towards gender, class, power relations, age, and environmental issues. Learners should be able to recognize the nature of bias, prejudice, and discrimination in texts. Hi there. Welcome to our third episode in our series on values, attitudes, and beliefs. By now, you probably have a very good understanding of your own values, attitudes, and beliefs. You've also probably sworn that you will always treat everybody very fairly, with the same respect and unbiased, no matter who they are or what their circumstances might be. But sometimes our prejudices are so much a part of us that we don't even know that they are there. Spusiso has had a lot of experience with prejudice and discrimination. Let's meet him and hear what he has to say.
My name is Spusiso Mokhale, and I come from Mpumalanga in White River. That's where I live with my parents. And I'm 15 years old, and I've got two brothers and just live with my mom, so it's just the four of us. Music I listen to mostly any kind of music, but mostly the one that I love is R&B. I love R&B music. The artists, the way they sing, the voices, there's just got a flow in me that goes on as soon as I hear the kind of music. I got with friends though, watch movies a lot, and although, as guys, and we meet girls there, and it's teenage life, so yeah, it's quite good though.
Spusiso seems like a nice guy. Why do you think people would discriminate against him? Chat to a partner and note the reasons for why people may discriminate against Spusiso. Here is what one learner said about Spusiso.
I think he looks quite normal. I don't know why people would discriminate against him.
If people say that you're normal, it means that there's nothing different about you. You're typical or regular. But here's where we need to be very careful, because what is typical or regular for you may not be typical or regular for someone else. What is normal for you may not be normal for everyone else. Let's look at the outcomes for this lesson. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to discuss how certain groups of people are marginalized by society, explain how prejudice stems from values, beliefs, and attitudes, and describe how prejudice can lead to discrimination. Often the majority decides what is normal or regular, and anyone who does not fit into that category is seen as different. It is when you start to see people as different or other that you begin to run into problems. Our constitution demands that we treat all South Africans as equal and that we no longer have these categories for normal or other. Despite the words of our constitution, many people are marginalized. The word marginalized means that people are treated as if they are less important than the rest of us. They are seen as insignificant, as if what they have to say has absolutely no value. Let's hear what Spusiso and Felicia have to say about fitting in.
How are you? What's your name? That's when they ask you after they've known you. But then I don't blame them, because, in this world that we're living in now, it's mostly, now we do get a lot of disabled, but the majority is so-called normals. So people don't get used to certain things. Well, that you can't blame them for.
Well, I would like somebody to meet me and greet me in a way as in they would meet anybody else. I mean, we are the same, we are equal. So if they came up to me, they should come up to me as if the same way as they would go to somebody else who's walking without a problem that doesn't have anything wrong with them. Because we are the same. And I will say hello back, and we're not nasty, we're not mean. We are the same.
The disabled have always had a rough deal. Historically, people with disabilities or illness have been hidden away from society, as if because they do not fit the majority view of what people should look like, they were different or other. People with illness or disability were kept in hospitals or on islands separate from everyone else. We like to think that we have all changed and that today we are far more sensitive towards people with disabilities. Let's find out if we are right.
Oh, I hate walking down the street, especially by myself, because if sometimes when I'm with somebody else, it's sometimes easier, because from one point to another, I'll find somebody staring at me the whole way until I'm out of their sight. And it's really irritating, because I'm a normal person. I'm the very same as they are, just that I don't have the use of my legs. Shame, that's what they usually think. And I don't think I hate that word, actually. I don't want people to feel sorry for me, because I don't feel sorry for myself. And people should actually understand us and know that we are the very same. Our brains work the very same.
Well, when I walk down the street or by the shopping center, anywhere I go, I usually find that I've got all eyes on me. Yeah, and it's a bit not comfortable sometimes. But I think during the years growing up, I'm getting used to it, and I know that some people don't really know much about people with disabilities. So at most of the time, they will just stare at you. And I would confront the person sometime, but mostly it's very not comfortable for, walking around and everybody's just looking at you. They even turn with their grocery stuff and just look at you, yeah.
I feel angry sometimes, but then I don't, express that much, but then it's bad. I just go home and then sleep on it, and then wake up the next day, I'm fine again. When I meet people, I could say, at where I stay, people stare at me, but then in order to make them stop staring, I stare back, and then I just move on, push my wheelchair and go wherever I'm going.
In White River, those girls, you just buy high, they ignore you, just move on. Why? Because I look like that.
People's opinions about disability are quite telling. They have their own beliefs about disabled people that are based on their own opinions about disability.
Okay, I went to a restaurant with my cousins. I had my younger cousins there and my older cousin there. And the waiter was supposed to take my order. And she looked at my older cousin and said, "What do you think she'd like to have?" And I thought, but I can actually speak for myself. So I turned to her and I said, "I think I would like to have a hamburger and chips." And I don't think that it's fair that she actually had to ask my older cousin, because I can speak for myself, A friend of mine actually was sitting down. She was just actually waiting for her parents. And she had a can of Coogee because she was drinking. And a lady walked up to her and actually gave her money. We're not beggars. I went to the mall, and then there was I was in a Pick and Pay, And, I was with my baby sister. She's Pachanga now. And then the thing is, they never really understood and stuff like that I can actually carry my own baby sister. I can look after her and stuff. But then I was carrying her and everything like that. And this woman comes up to me and goes, "Shame, you actually have to carry the child yourself and all these things. And I can take care of my baby sister. I'm old enough to take care of myself too, And I think that I should be given the credit or I can do things by myself. I can do those kind of things."
Some of you might ask if people are really prejudiced or just insensitive. Sometimes when people don't really understand a situation, they jump to conclusions about disabled people. Often, these conclusions can point out an underlying prejudice that this person holds. The waitress in the restaurant had assumed that Felicia would not be able to order for herself. Why did she assume this? She obviously believed that somehow being in a wheelchair meant that Felicia was mentally incapable, and we can see how this made Felicia feel. Let's see how Lucky and Thabo have experienced this.
On Wednesday, we went to an expo, education expo. We were speaking to this guy, auditor, and we were very interested in the auditing. And he explained everything for us, but when we left, he spoke in Afrikaans and he said, feels very sorry for them. They are trying, but they're not getting anywhere. And that kind of thing, I did not want to confront that. And I told my friend, let's not just confront it. Let's just leave the situation the way it is. And maybe next day he'll see us in his company and say, "Oh, now I feel sorry for these guys and they're auditing here." So I think people tend to take us for granted, and they think that there's nothing that we can do because we've got a disability, and they think that a physical disability goes with mental and everything, but it's not here, it's all here, you see. So the brain is the whole capacity, not the physical structure.
Some people would think that, this guy's on a wheelchair, he's dumb or he's crazy or something. And then some would, come to you and then ask you, how is it, Like my little cousin would take my wheelchair while I'm sitting there. She would climb and tells me, no, I want to feel how it is to be in a wheelchair and stuff. I said, no, it's cool. You have to just get used to it.
From what they said, we could tell that people hold prejudices towards disabled people. But when does prejudice become discrimination? Discrimination is when rules or laws are made that stop people from enjoying their rights. So if Lucky was prevented from getting a job because of his disability, then we could say that he has been a victim of discrimination. It's also when people are excluded from something because the environment is not set up for them. Perhaps there are no wheelchair ramps, which means that people in wheelchairs will have to stay on the ground floor. Or perhaps the buttons in the lift don't have braille. How are visually challenged people supposed to work out which button to press? If this is the case, then we can say that the disabled have been discriminated against.
Okay, like if let's say I wanted to use a taxi, and then I would stand there by the street and actually wait, and they'll just run right by because they actually think we're going to waste their time, or just, they don't understand, they just don't want to wait. And sometimes you'd have to pay for two. And I'm actually one person, and why don't people really look? And I hate staring, I hate it.
Although our constitution has changed, as you can see, many people's attitudes towards the disabled haven't. This means that on top of having to cope with their disability, they also have to cope with other people's prejudices. Why do you think people still behave this way?
I think that people behave like this because they don't know about disabilities, they don't understand what it is and why a person is in a wheelchair. I mean, maybe a person's missing a leg or missing an arm, or I'm on a wheelchair, but then I can speak for myself and I can think and I know what I want to say. So I think they should ask us, and some people just don't know about disability, so that's what they think and it's what they know.
I believe that society needs to take into consideration that there are people among us who are less fortunate than the rest of us, especially disabled people, because they don't have that many physical abilities as the rest of us. So therefore, we need to be understanding and hear them and listen to what they have to say. Everybody has equal rights, and so should disabled people.
Perhaps if we had more opportunity to spend with disabled people, we would understand them better.
I think society needs to take into consideration that we do have people among us who are not as fortunate as the rest of us, and I think we need to sit down and get to know them a lot better. Then we won't have so much of conflict.
This is exactly why it is now policy for schools to provide for learners with special needs. This means that children with disabilities must be able to attend their local school. This also means that we need to consider how schools will have to change so that the disabled are not discriminated against in our school environments.
It's very difficult, and we always try. My whole life, I've lived my whole life on using able people stuff. I've lived trying to, every day, I always get a challenge, and I have to make a plan. I would sometimes not be able to do it, and I'll go back home and I'll think at night. So this thing is like this. I picture it in my mind. So if I can tackle it like this, I would be able to get there and reach this and hold it. So, and I do that, and the plan does succeed. But in all, it's a bit of a lot of work for me. And it would have been easier if before that was made, I would have been considered. Before that was made, a person on a wheelchair would have been considered. Before that was made, also an able person would have been considered. Not just the able, but everybody who lives on earth should be thought about. Researches should be made before we just build things and we say, we build, and I'm an architect, I make the best design. I would say a design that does not accommodate everybody is not the best design. That's for sure, it's not the best design.
So what can we do so that life is not so difficult for the disabled people?
Oh, it's horrible going to the movies, especially in some malls where it isn't wheelchair friendly at all, and they won't let you actually go into a cinema, or they won't help you in or something like that. And then the people will sometimes shout at you and not understand what you're trying to say.
The most annoying time, I would say, I don't know, like when you want to get to the stairs, or when you're late for class or something, like in school, you see people running up the stairs and you're late, and then, man, you feel bad.
I would say the school sometimes discriminates. because it's got door handles that some of us can open, those round poly door handles. Some of us can open those. It's quite difficult to do because now let's say you go to the toilet or you're late for class. Now you still have to look for someone who's gonna help you open the door because now knocking probably disturbing the teacher or something. And when you knock, obviously with these hands, you make quite a lot of a noise.
I find that most of the architects, when they design something, they don't consider the other people. They consider only the majority of the people on earth. And I think those are one of the things that when you go to university or a technical, when you're an architect, that's one of the things you should be taught, that you must always build a building that is accessible to every person in this world. And I would say for me, there's not much of a problem, but for guys on a wheelchair, there's lots of problems. But sometimes I get to a place and I want to reach for something high, but I can't reach for it, you know, and I always have to struggle to do things. But the way things are being done, we are not considered as part of the world. That's the way I see it.
And so what does this mean for your school? Here's your task. Your task is to complete a school audit in which you and a partner make a list of everything you think you will need to be adapted or changed to ensure that learners with special needs are able to learn in your school. Start by thinking about what Busiso, Lucky, Tabo, and Felicia will need. Then, take a walk around your school, seeing if your environment can cater for them. That's all we have time for today. But before we go, let's get a last message from the guys.
If you don't understand, you can always come to a person with a disability and just say that I'm not here to laugh at you and I'm not here. I'm trying to understand this. I know you would never understand the situation, but you're trying to get a little bit of the picture. And I'm open to that. A person coming to me asking, hey, how you live? And because I would also like to know how does a normal person live? You see, so it's not like it's a bad thing. I can always ask, hey, how do you live, man? And how do you cope with your abilities and disabilities? Because I believe that everybody has got a disability. So it might not be physical like mine, but there is a disability in every person living on this earth. So people should try finding more information about something before they start talking and acting without any information.
It is hard being disabled, especially if you weren't born with it. I mean, you have to actually get through the pain and so on, but we can handle it. So they should also think about that. It is very difficult to be in a wheelchair and so on. It is very emotional too. And I'd just like to say to them that, it is difficult, but really you don't have to feel sorry for us because we don't feel sorry for ourselves. I do not need, I don't feel, it's not a shame that I'm on a wheelchair.
Basically, how I want people to treat me is to treat me the same way they would treat their other fellow students or friends or whoever. I just want to be treated the same way and live the same as the other people live, and just take me and accept me because we all are there and we are one.
I would say for a guy like me, well, you get friends. I'm used to the guys at school, so the way they greet you is like, what's up, man, how are you? I'd love for a guy to do that. For the first time he sees me, at least greet me like, as if like any other person else. Just, you mustn't make me special. You mustn't make me, although we all must feel special, but come on, not in that way.